right, so I want to introduce our feature presenter. She is the storyteller at Microsoft. She produces creative content around key technology trends and designs materials that showcase Microsoft products and services. She's an award-winning international speaker and brand coach, and she's been featured on some of the top social media, marketing, and technology conferences in the US and abroad, including the Social Media Strategy Summit. So today she is here to share insights on how to do storytelling for brand marketing. So without further ado, give a warm business accelerator welcome to Miri Rodriguez.
Good, welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Can I just say I love Madison? Amazing! Wow! And can I just give a shout out to DreamBank for putting this together?
Yes.
That's amazing. You guys are awesome. Incredible people, incredible places. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you guys and share a little bit about storytelling. I did some social media work at Microsoft for about 3.5 years. And now I'm an official, that's my title, storyteller from Microsoft, which is incredible. I didn't even know that existed, honestly. I was like, you don't go to school to be a storyteller. It just kind of happens in this social media age, so it's very cool. And I'm really excited about talking to you guys about unearthing the spirit of your brand through storytelling. So all of us, if you own a company or if you work for a company or if you're just thinking about your own personal branding, it's really cool to think about the way that you tell the story, how it really brings forth who your brand is, what your brand is about. So that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about. And stories spark emotions. They're really amazing in the way that we can tell stories, the way we communicate, and we really want to connect with people. And one of the best storytellers in the world is my mom. She's an incredible storyteller. I am actually from Venezuela. Caracas, Venezuela is where I'm originally from. And in Venezuela, we have 2 shifts for school. We don't have, you don't go to school from 7 to 3 or whatever you could do here. So I went to school from 7 to noon, and so I was really lucky. And I would get home, I would walk home every day, and it was lunchtime. She would make a home-cooked meal. She was amazing. She is amazing. And then she would tell stories. So it was story time at lunchtime, which is incredible. And, as a good storyteller, she just was very creative, very detailed in her stories. And one time as a kid, she told a really great story, and I couldn't go as a kid, when you want to hear a story and it's really good, you want to hear it again, right? So the next day I came home and I was like, Mom, tell that story again, right? And she's like, which one? And I'm like, Mom, the story, the dragon and the giant. And she's like, oh, and she started stumbling, and trying to figuring out what she was saying the day before. She forgot the story. And I was dumbfounded. I was like, Mom, the story. And I was like, that's not how it goes, Mom. So she actually sucked, and I'm okay to say that. She, I told her I would be telling her that in a presentation. But honestly, if you're a good storyteller, you can't forget your story. You have a story to tell. You got to tell your story. You got to tell it right. So even if it's a good story the first time, you got to know how to tell it the same way the next time. That's point number 1 in your storytelling. And here's a couple of facts about branding and storytelling. Number 1. It's a fact that every brand has a story. Every one of them. And every story is unique. And everyone wants to hear your story. Maybe. Maybe. And that all depends on how you tell that story. That all depends not only on the creativity of the story, but how you're actually living that story through that will connect with your people. It is about transparency. It is about passion, and you can't fake that, right? You can't fake that. So these are 3 facts that you need to know when you're thinking about, well, what is my story? Know that you have one. That's to start with. Everyone does have one, and every brand has one, and it is unique because we all go through life. We have unique experiences. And as a brand, the brand has unique experiences it's gone through, so it's really important to tell those stories. At Microsoft, we tell stories like this. Bill Gates, in the 1990s, his vision was to put a PC in every household and every home. Did he do that? Absolutely he did. Absolutely he did. And it was great. And then our current CEO, Satya Nadella, a great one as well. Our story today is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to do more, to achieve more. And when you look at these 2 stories, they have the same essence. They may not be the same wording, they may not be the same messaging, but a PC in every household in the 1990s was a big deal. It was empowering to us, right? So today when we have more than just PCs and we have a lot more gadgets and we have products and services that we're offering, it's not just about the PC, it's about the empowerment that those devices and those products bring. And that's the story at Microsoft. So at Microsoft, we kind of had to go, wow, we don't only have a PC, how do we rebrand ourselves from the dinosaur giant, that we are, or we might be perceived as? How do we look at the world differently and let them look at us differently? And it was through stories. It was through actual people who we call people of action. These people of action are real people. They're not models. They look like models, but they're not. And they're real people with real stories who we've picked up their stories because they're doing something amazing with our products and services. So what we're doing is the story, for example, of Ariela's sister, and I'll tell you a little bit more about her. I actually personally know her. I met her in Morocco at one of the conferences there, and her story blew me away. And we picked up her story, and we asked her to tell us her story. So we didn't script it. We didn't hand her a script and say, hey, talk about Microsoft like this. We just said, hey, tell us your story. When you see her story and every other people of action story at Microsoft, these are people like you and I who are using the technologies to actually empower themselves and empower other people. So when you talk about your brand or your personal brand and how you can use storytelling to actually tell a story, it's about their story. It's about what you're doing to empower them. It's about how your products and services are helping other people. Why do you exist? That's the core of your story. Why do you exist? Somehow, somewhere, somebody said, we're going to create DreamBank because we want to do this for the community. Somebody said, we're going to create Microsoft because we want to do this for technology. Somebody said, we're going to create Google because we're going to do this for a search engine optimization. So every brand, every one of you has that story to tell. At Microsoft, we also focus on achievements. Achievements are important because they're actually subjective, and we don't have thresholds on those achievements. What that means is, at Microsoft, an achievement could be like, hey, I ran a 5K, and that's subjective to you, or somebody who graduated first in their, graduate college for the first time in their family. That's an achievement. Or somebody who just, got through a meal. I don't know. So the thresholds, we don't put them ourselves. We let people talk about their own achievements because they have them and they're important to them. So we focus on 4 things about achievements, and that's what our stories talk about: movement, heroic achievements, betterment, and destination. And all of these areas, all of your achievements fall into one of these categories, and we just place them there, and it doesn't matter how big or small they may seem to society standards, but there are still achievements to those people. And so we don't sugarcoat that, or we don't make it bigger. It is what it is. It is their story, and that's how we tell the stories. We also include supporters, and that's important because all of us are here because somebody believed in us. All of us are here because somebody supported us. Somebody launched us somehow. Somebody did something for us that got us here in where we are today. The brand is the same way. The brand doesn't exist on its own. There's people that support it. So we don't use just the protagonist and the stories that we tell. We tell the entire story, and the people who have supported these stories and these people who are driving the stories, we talk about them as well. So it's really important at Microsoft how we do that. Here's a story about Ariela and what she's done with Microsoft products.
I grew up in El Salvador during the Civil War, and in the past years, I have seen my country become more and more violent due to gang-related murders. I left El Salvador to go to college, but I always knew that one day I would go back and make a difference. In 2011, I created Sequence, my company of handcrafted jewelry and accessories. We employ young men who are at risk of joining gangs and are exposed to violence. We offer them a place to work and also offer them educational opportunities. I wanted to create something that was sustainable, disrupt the sequence of events,
and be part of something that they feel proud of.
So as we continue to grow, we want to also hire people from different gangs. So our challenge is that we recently started a new workshop only 15 minutes away. We can't send our young men to train them because our young men would be threatened or killed if they access that area. So we've been relying on technology, and specifically Skype, by having our current workshop train the young people who are starting with us through Skype instead of physically being there. We have really focused on bringing new opportunities for these young men to succeed and become leaders to other young people, to be able to become agents of change themselves.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Oh, Ariella, she's incredible. She is as wonderful as you see her there. And the reality is, so when we picked up her story, it was so real and it was so not sugar-coated that when it went and through our channels, she was actually a little bit, she had to go in hiding for a little bit because her life was actually in danger in the place that she was, because she was actually dealing with gang members and hiring these potential, rivaling gangs that could create a situation. So this is just to show how we pick up real stories of people who are using our technologies to do what they're doing in their own space all over the world. And so part of what we do as well is we focus on our mission. So your mission really is your story. And I go back to that. I started with that at the beginning of the presentation, because for us, is we believe in what people, we believe in what people make possible. And for us, we never go away from that. Every story that we have in every channel, whether it's YouTube or Instagram, Twitter, anywhere we go, we really focus on our mission and go back to what it is that we're doing every single time. So brands, I found, when this whole social media gave birth to a whole lot of content marketing and a digital transformation, we kind of forgot about that. We kind of forgot about our mission, and we just wanted to push out content because we thought we need to be there, we have to have presence. Go back to that mission, go back to what it is, go back to who you are and what your brand is about. And that's where the passion comes from, and that's what you can tell the story about. We also use the inspiration that our clients or our people of action have. They inspire us. So ask your people. Content generated by your consumers, they're telling stories about you anyway, right? They're going on social media and they're saying, I like these shoes, or I don't like these shoes from Target, or whatever it may be. We already are talking. As consumers, we do that all the time. We tell stories about anywhere we go, Starbucks, anywhere we go. So there's already information out there about your brand, and just use that. Use that for yourself and create those stories. Understand what your customers want. I mean, that's what it's all about. See what inspires them and bring that to your storytelling. Ask them what it is. Ask them to tell your story. Say, hey, what do you like about our products? What do you like about our services? They're going to talk, because you talk when somebody asks you that, right? So it's just as simple. Say, hey, give me a story. Tell me what it's about, and let them tell the story. We also use the personality, the tone, and purpose. We don't deviate from that. That's really important. You have to have your own brand, personality, tone, and purpose. You have to define what that is. If it's technology, if it's playful, if it's the tone is friendly, or if it's subtle, if it's human, whatever those attributes you have for your brand, either for your personal brand or for your company, you want to make sure that you stick to those every single time. In a company and organization like Microsoft, for us we're so global and there's so many storytellers and so many marketers all over the world, we want to make sure we stick to this so that we can sound like Microsoft and we be recognized all over the world as the brand. So we want to stick to that every single time. It's really important that every piece of work, of content that we push out, we go back and go, does that sound like Microsoft? I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller, and I work right now for IT Showcase. It's more of a technical content that I drive, but when I do stories, at the end of my story, I think I sound really good. I'm like, oh, this is a great story. And then I send it to my son, who always kind of, he's like my editor. He's like, Mom, that sucks. I'm like, okay, go back to the drawing board. But when I'm done and I really want to submit it for content publishing, I always ask myself, do I sound like Microsoft? This is not about me. This is Microsoft. I'm representing the brand. Same for yourself. If you are thinking about your personal branding, do you sound like you? Do you sound like you? Do people recognize your tone and personality when they see your brand? That's really important. We also build assets and we share them. And so we're not about, this is all our stuff and we're going to keep it to ourselves. For a company as big as Microsoft, we want to make sure we create a central place that's called Brand Central. And we keep all our assets there and our guidelines. If you don't have guidelines for your storytelling, please build them. They're very important. That's exactly what's going to get you to write a great story and content marketing. It's all about assets and what you have, whether it's video content, whether it's photos. But if you have those guidelines, you can actually just write anything, stick into those guidelines, and it could just be a different messaging, like we saw with Bill Gates and Satya. So the messaging is different, and maybe sounds a little bit different because it was decades ago, but it tells the same story. So you want to make sure you have those guidelines, and it kind of flows through each of our channels the same. So even though our channels don't look exactly the same, and we're probably telling different stories on YouTube and Microsoft.com, you can actually tell that we look the same throughout the channel, so you can recognize the brand. So that's important. Your guidelines are important. We also talk about other brands that tell storytelling. You know, it's important that you understand your industry, your competitors, your space, and other people that are doing it great. Share a Coke. Everybody remember that campaign? Still going on, right? If you're like me, your name is not going to show up at Target with your name on the bottle. So you actually can get one online. If your name is like mine, Miri, you can actually go and pay $5 and get your own Coke with your name on it. I haven't done it yet, but I thought it was pretty cool. Anyway, so you go there and you actually tell stories about your sharing a Coke experience. This is a brilliant, brilliant tactic that Coke did, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because now they have millions of stories for free. They put up a website and they said, give me your stuff, share your Coke, and tell me about it. And people did. Now that's a little bit risky, right? Because you don't know what they're gonna do, but it worked. People were positively sharing a Coke stories, putting them on the website, and now they have all this content that belongs to them, and they have stories for days. They have stories for days. That's amazing. So be a little bit risky in your storytelling and get your people to tell stories. Get your customers to talk about your brand. And that's what gets them opened up. A lot of people want like, well, you know, what do I do? Do I just walk up and say, tell your story? Yeah, you can. That's what they did. That's a great tactic. Another brand that gets storytelling, and I'm going kind of around the gamma of outside of the industry of technology, Burt's Bees. Burt's Bees. And I know that, you know, I don't know if you use the products, but good products. They are so good about telling their story. They have an entire web page dedicated to their story. Now, they don't push that content on you. When you go to the other channels, they're just doing their thing and, you know, marketing their brand nicely. But if you want to know how they came to be, got it? I rehearsed that. Okay, no, seriously. If you want to know how they came about, they have an entire page of stuff that they tell you about their story. Why? Because it's important. Because it changes the product for you. When you learn about how they came to be, you're like, man, I didn't know that. Last night I met a gentleman who was talking about his family business, and they create these beautiful centerpieces from fruits, right? Yeah. Yes? And so he was talking about how that happened. His family, who are immigrants, is a first-generation immigrant. They actually had a fruit stand that they sold fruit, you know, regular fruit in the highway. And so he kind of merged from that and built it into actual real nice pieces that he now sells to hotels. And he says when he was telling his story about this, he goes, I grin every time I make this piece because I remember what my parents went through. I remember where I come from every single time. I was like, where are you? Can I just have 2 of those? Do you know what I mean? It's like, now I really want that centerpiece because I know the story behind it. I know where it came from. I know that somebody's building this and it's not just a centerpiece anymore. I'm connected to the story. And that's what stories do. They humanize the brand. They humanize the emotion of the product itself. And so Burt's Bees does that really well. Another brand that gets storytelling, Google. The first time I presented this, it was really funny because I talked to my mentor and I said, should I really present about our competitor? And he's like, well, I'm not gonna say yes or no. I'm just saying no guts, no glory. I'm like, okay, I'll present. But here's a great story, and I want to share this with you. I promise you would probably cry in my presentation, and you probably will because this. Let me show you.
ये मैं, ये यूसुफ लंगोटिया यार सी मेरा। लाहौर में हमारे घर के सामने एक बड़ा बाग था। उस बाग का गेट बाबा आदम के जमाने। रोज शाम को हमने वहाँ पतंगे उड़ानी और उसके बाद जाके यूसुफ के दुकान से जजरिया चुरा के खानी।
जजरिया?
और मेरा साहब नमस्ते।
नमस्ते, मेरी पोती मुंबई वाली।
और बेटे क्या हाल है?
बचपन की तंग गली फिर से कूदे फांदे छोटी छोटी मीठी चोरी गांठ लेके बांधे
हेलो अस्सलाम वालेकुम
फाजिल स्वीट्स
हाँ जी दादाजान दिल्ली से किसी की कॉल है
हेलो
यूसुफ अंकल
कौन
जी मैं सुमन बोल रही हूँ दिल्ली से आपके बचपन के दोस्त बलदेव जी की पोती याद है बचपन में आप दोनों झझरिया चुरा के खाते थे
बचपन की तंग गली फिर से कूदे फांदे छोटी छोटी मीठी चोरी गांठ लेके बांधे एक पतंग सा उड़ता था परिंदों की तरह परिंदों की तरह परिंदों की तरह एक दौर था मन मन मोर था एक दौर था मन मन मोर था
पार्टीशन के वक्त हम रातों रात हिंदुस्तान आ गए
दादू
यूसुफ दी बड़ी याद आती है
कागजों की कश्तियों में डूबा रहता था झांकती खिड़कियों में उलझा रहता था वो भी क्या दौर था मन पे न जोर था एक दौर था मन मन मोर था एक दौर था मन मन मोर था
भैया थोड़ा जल्दी
मन मोर
हाँ जी कौन हैप्पी बर्थडे यारा यूसुफ वो यूसुफ मेरे बल्लू यूसुफ यार
Come on. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Some good storytelling there, right? Now I know you're not Google. And, oh, I don't know what I did here. Sorry. I know you're not Google, and you probably don't have the budget to go to India and do something this amazing. Did I promise you were going to cry? Yeah, you did. I met that promise. But here's the deal. You don't have to. In a social media day and age where Snapchat and Instagram stories and Facebook Live are available for you from your mobile device, your stories are as real, and you don't have to make a big production. It really is about people and connectivity. And it's about transparency. So a few storytelling trends that you can walk away with. Video streaming is now obviously everything that people are doing, they're expecting in terms of content. And that's important because content by itself no longer works if it's digital, kind of still content. You want to make sure that you actually bring into the story real live content and video streaming. So think about that and how you can do that. Slideshows, it's actually funny with Snapchat being so prevalent in our millennial generation. We used to read, and if you're in marketing, you know this, in communications, we used to read kind of left to right in a circle format. So if you're looking at a screen, you kind of used to go like this and go back to the middle. We actually are starting to read what we call vertical, so it's like up and down and left to right because of all these devices and ways that the stories work on social media and Instagram and Snapchat. So important to know that incorporating slideshows is important because our brain is like, we have now like, I don't know what it is, like 1 second of a attention span or less, a millisecond. So we want to make sure we keep our audiences engaged with different types of content as we tell a story. The new influencer is important to know as well. A lot of people talk about micro-influencers and macro-influencers and paying all these people to talk about our brand. The new influencer is your people. They already are your fans. They're your customers. So engage them. They're talking to their moms and dads and they're talking to their brothers and sisters about your brand already. So leverage that because it exists, it's already there. And transparency, it's really what it's all about. When When you understand that the brand is being genuine and it's telling a story like Google and telling a story like a real sister, those are things that get to our hearts really deeply because it's transparent. You know, Google did not once mention their products in the entire story that they told. They were very clever on how they inserted every possible avenue of how their products service someone. And so that's incredible. And your products do service someone as well. So make sure that you can cleverly tell that story as well. So remember, you have a story, tell it well. And build guidelines and share your content. Don't be afraid to do that. As small as your company may be, you want to leave that legacy of content sharing and guidelines that people can use as you move on or as you grow or as you develop your brand further. And tell real stories of real people, they exist, and how your brand has helped them achieve those goals. And that's it. Thank you.